So this is a video that I talked about making. So I'm going to extemporize on the impact and influence of tantric modalities on technology, and specifically the technology of the future, which is, by the operation of the material itself becoming the technology of the present, which is also, because of the nature of the material itself, of a single piece with the supposed technologies of the ancient world that have been lost to us. So, like that high-end, getting Edgar Casey fucking wet in his bed kind of shit. Anyways, we start with the Manjushri Mulakalpa, which is Tantra. I believe they probably classify it as an action Tantra, like Karya Tantra. That means it's used to get shit done. Whereas, like the highest yoga tantras, which are, most of the Tibetan stuff focuses on that. That's where you do like self-visualization as the deity and this perfection stage practice and all that. Like that's Anuttara Yoga Tantra. That is, as far as like the rating system goes in the ancient world, the Tibetans and basically everybody places the Anuttara Yoga Tantras much higher than the Karya Tantras. However, I'm here to say that those quote-unquote lower-end Tantras actually have the secrets to the future. Why? Well, it's quite simple. The worldly Tantras are where the rubber meets the road as far as the impingement of the perfected realms of the Buddhas upon the world in which we find ourselves most of the time. So, that being the case, the thing that I was most interested in with the Manjushri Mulakalpa, besides getting to bang all these fucking, extra, like, human plus type figures, right? In addition to the super duper sex stuff, there is something called conveyance consciousness, or something that I would call conveyance consciousness. It arises out of the part of the Tantra which, I think it's in I don't want to quote which chapter, but it's in the one that relays the sadhana of the boat, and it's connected with the practice of the one syllable, which is a way to refer to one of these very powerful deities that kind of like encapsulates all of the other ones. And so, a lot of the one syllable characters have the same appellations of, being to accomplish anything with this one syllable type shit. Well, that one syllable is, and it's like transliterated as, as far as like English goes, as a very complex, unpronounceable syllable. It's basically goes K-H-L-L, or K-L-L-H-M. Almost sounds like kill him, right? That's not what it's saying. No. The idea here is that one is performing the sadhanas of the boat with the express purpose of creating a mode of conveyance which will suffice to take the practitioner to any place he might want to go, arriving in any condition he might want to arrive in, and doing so while affording all necessary protections and amenities, right? So it's about getting where you want to go in style and not being a broke bitch when you get there, right? So naturally this is like tied up with, how does a civilization visualize such a thing? To us, that's the UFO, right? That's basically this omni-capable conveyance, or rather, a vessel which can fucking do anything, right? So the UFO is that for us. Whether it's a flying saucer or a Townsend tube or fucking whatever it is. In my case, for my money, I already put together the best one, which is why I'm here talking to you about this. The best one is the Golden Drop. Now, that's you're referring to the internal structure of one of the wish-fulfilling gems of the Rodda family, which is perhaps beyond the scope of this particular thing. But okay, back to the Manjushri Mulakal thing. So this conveyance consciousness, in the Sanskrit text, it's a boat, right? Because in the old world, a boat is like how you get around to like seriously foreign places. You know what I mean? Like by land, you're riding on a fucking camel or a goddamn horse or something, right? And you could go on forever like that, and you would use that to get like next door or to the next country over. Whereas for most people, if you get on a boat, you're gonna go like somewhere else, definitively some other fucking place. And by this I mean, you're going to the new world, essentially. That's the vibe that everybody has. So the vessel capable of traveling on the great open oceans and getting to the quote-unquote new world. That's the point of one of the conveyances, right? One of the conveyance... Sorry, what? No. And if you came from that way, why would I know? This idiot. Now, the whole thing with conveyance consciousness in that document is that so the sadhana goes like this: like you have your companion, and you and your companion go out on a boat. The companion like rows around in a fucking circle or some other defined pattern in the middle of a river, and doesn't really go anywhere. During that period, you're saying mantras, doing all this shit, right? And so, from the point of view of a scientific outlook, which is what we're going to use here, what you're doing is you're establishing a couple of things that are going to become linked concepts. One is a phased array, or a phased array propagation of a signal. What do I mean by that? Well, it's like over the horizon radar. You send out the same signal in the same direction of propagation, but you time it a little bit out of sync, so the waves, it bends the wave basically to go over the horizon. That concept holds true in a very important way, because this thing is ultimately trying to propel the conveyance beyond the realm, beyond the confines of our space and time, and thereby establishes some sort of extra universal object or omni-universal object as far as its ability to interact with the local space-time of the user. So basically rowing around in a circle or some defined pattern while the other person is repeating these specific kinds of mantras invoking these deities, that's creating this pattern that's being repeated over and over and over again. But because it's done in a sequence or a series that just by the nature of the case occupies different moments in space or different moments in time, while having all of the other elements be the same, what you've de facto done is establish one of these phased array patterns, out of phase propagation things, right? The other thing that you've done is create, spatially speaking, a scalar or a zero vector translation area of stress in a medium. And because of the activities that are going into making this, area of zero vector translation, or the defined topological area in which the self-same repetitious activities occur, that's the actual scalar itself. And because that is roughly a sphere, you can see how simply by collapsing that, you get the idea of a singularity. This is the bindu, or the seed, which is at the heart of the propagation method. Okay. So what happens is that you create this, propagating signal, and after you've reached, a sufficient number of repetitions to, energize the mechanism, what happens is these, personified forces of the cosmos start interacting with you. And these are like nagas and yakshas and rakshasas, things like this. And from the point of view of the practitioner, it's important to understand that while these beings do indeed have an equivalent measure of ontological validity as far as they're concerned, right? From the point of view of the human being who's carrying out this objective, the ontological status of the human supersedes that of all other phenomena involved. And that's important to understand, because they also understand that. And to have it be any other way is not only dooming the operation to failure, it's like a weird fucking parody. And, it's like a mockery. Like, you don't want to do that. Like, the human beings are supposed to run shit. Like, the rishis actually are supposed to run shit. So the enlightened human beings have the reality quotient. They're the ones that can affect the karma or the kind of destiny of things, the teleological operators. And so, because of the different kind of deities that are invoked when you're doing this, these are personified forces of the natural cosmos. So they also correspond to parts of the human being itself. So it's important to then realize that what you're really interacting with when you're doing this are the various forces that you have to either overcome or enlist to get the fucking job done, right? To put you outside of space and time. So, in the Naga's case, that's basically fucking with extremely low frequency waves of some kind. So Nagas being long-lived, essentially immortal. What that's telling you is that the periodicity of the carrier wave that they're on is, roughly equivalent to the periodicity of a single universal life event. So they live for the duration of a cosmos, is what it's trying to say. So that's ELF. That's, extremely low frequency. The other, parts that show up during this thing be things like yakshinis. So the yakshinis they're basically the spirits of prior incarnations of sentient beings. In some sense, this is like a parallel universe type phenomenon, because due to the fact of their proximity in either time or genetics or epigenetics, in a resonant sense, to the being who's doing this operation. These kind of spirit beings, basically like jinn, right? They're representative of whole swaths of personified forms of other consciousness. So ones like the ant people, right, or the Garudas, or whatever. Garuda is also another thing. Garuda's a frightening piece of applied technology, but we'll talk about that later. So, the idea is, once you engage all of these things, this conveyance, this universal conveyance, just a simple boat, and it relies almost on like a Platonic form or archetype type argument, is that when you succeed, the Nagas and the other beings that are there, and it's important to have like the Nagas they basically represent the oceans, or more specifically, they represent like the underneath the oceans. They're also associated with the underworld, like the cavern system. However, in this case, the Danavas are more associated with the like underground type thing, right? And that's basically a nod to the fact that the Nagas and the Danavas are basically, like, if you look at it, the Dumuzid the shepherd and Dumuzid the fisherman are like telling you the scions of the smiths, like the people who like make technologies. The Danavas, the city of the Danavas is basically Bad Tabira of the Sumerians. The king Dumuzid, who is basically like, if you look at the staff of Hermes, is like that guy surrounded by two Nagas, is Dumuzid and the two other kings of Bad Tabira. Now, the city of the smiths has two incarnations that survive in the world. One being called the shepherds, which is the people who like live on land as nomads, like land pirates essentially. And the other one is the Nagas, or the people who are sailing, the Phoenicians basically. So the two like serpent type races, one is the Danavas, who are basically like, they're like short humanoids, and then the other ones are fucking, the ones that live on boats are actually much bigger, like Vikings. They're fucking, the ones that are gonna come and just beat the shit out of everybody. They're terrifying. It's like the Vikings and basically like the Hittites or some shit. And so the importance of having like the underworld and the undersea thing is basically to say like the ELF and the propagation cavities that exist in the earth, which because of the structure of this thing, they're like resonant and thereby stand-ins for not only territories but like qualities of the scalar thing. And that simply means that they're like the maze, the tablets of destinies, like the specific resonant configurations of this scalar type thing. So the owner of that system, that's basically the architecture of the Maya Danava system. So there's the person who owns that is the fucking Danava guy. The person who is essentially the anchor of all of the genetic and epigenetic material of that. So that would be the genetic side of it. The holder of the keys of immortality, right? Those are the two trees. Anyways, so that guy is the Naga guy, right? So immortality and technology, that's all the underworld and undersea shit. That's Sirius and Polaris. Or rather, reverse Polaris, Sirius and Polaris, right? So the Yakshas are basically, like I said, that's the proliferation of offshoot cultural models that are still extant within the genetic and epigenetic spheres, and are thus need to be parties to any ongoing contractual relations that affect the outcome of the universe. So that's basically like the 72 kings of hell, more or less, right? Angels, archangels, shit like that. They're basically like ordinal elements of different information sets that are present in the genetics and epigenetic sphere. And by getting them into a highly leveraged spot where one of them can speak for like large numbers of things, and basically tying up all the possible ends of this thing into a knot that will hold is the purpose of having all of them there. That's the earth element. And then the air element is basically like the Apsaras, the Garuda, things like that. Anything that has the association of flying somewhere. That's the ability to it's the ability to like change the fucking circumstances right away. And that's like phase changing. Phase changing is alchemy. It's the ability to basically introduce unknown factors, right? And that's something that, from like the Naga point of view, is something that's just the horrific thing to think of. And it's just symbolized by the snake that has basically shit made for it on the ground. All of a sudden, a fucking bird comes down and eats its head. It can't see it, doesn't know where it comes from. It's just fucking death from above, right? That's the element of that, like this randomness thing. So you have to like incorporate all of that, and it's important to get that thing on your side because the heavens take one of two fucking modalities. One is death from above, and two is the fucking the space ark rescue mission. The orbital platform can rain weapons or get you out of a fucking sticky situation. Air support. So by having all of those things involved in the flight of the universal conveyance from the realm of the humans, basically, in the great ocean, to the realm of Brahma, which exists outside of the bounds of this universe as we know it. Because of the participation of every one of those things, it's like all of the potentialities that are contained therein are then kind of mapped into this universal conveyance just because it's been through it, It's like a quantum entanglement thing. Like those things touch the conveyance, so like they're entangled with it, right? So the other thing that's entangled with it is the consciousness of the companion. So, what happens to the companion when you get to the realm of Brahma? Well, apparently whatever happens to him is like whatever his goal was, right? But what remains as far as what the actual practitioner is concerned, as far as you're concerned, what remains is like an image of that guy. The image of like your companion remains as like essentially the mind of the ship. So the conveyance that you're in, the UFO, has like the personality of your best friend, and it literally says in there that it takes your favorite quality, the one that you found either most useful or most endearing, and turns that somehow into like a superpower of this thing that it uses to help you accomplish all your goals. And that's basically the construction of the conveyance consciousness. It establishes via these operations of high esotericism that really resemble the very sophisticated quantum computer programming of like a high level, not really AIs, but like emergent consciousness forms. So it's doing all of that in order to make essentially, like I said, a conveyance consciousness, something that will run like a UFO for you, right? And they thought this up in like 1100 AD. And the fact that it uses Sanskrit as the programming language, it makes a lot of sense because it gives you an incredible amount of flexibility. Plus, those people are very much into saying mantras, so there's a very, very solid and robust plenum of information related to that. Now, conveyance consciousness. this thing, now that you create one of these boats, it suffices to basically be your conveyance. Now, where else does this concept exist within the milieu of the culture that generated the Manchester Miller Cult? Well, it exists in a lot of places. The primary one being the concept in the tantric sadhanas of the mount. So the deities, or the yidams, the meditational deities that a person will identify themselves with during the course of a tantric sadhana, or a means of attainment of supernatural powers, basically, for the benefit of beings, right? So these meditational deities, or yidams, often are depicted riding on something. And that has a variety of meanings depending on the kind of thing, the kind of sadhana, and the kind of general context that generated it. So it could be anything from like a dragon, or a horse, or a fucking zombie. Like, there's more than you would think, right? Zombies. So basically, if somebody's riding around on a zombie, it means it's like a parasitic form of consciousness that's like driving a person around, right? And that could exist for a lot of reasons. And in fact, for most people, that is the experience of the realization of it, unless you create one yourself, right? And even that is like, you're already transcending the ideas of personhood, right? Because you have to be comfortable with the idea of like seeing through the eyes of like 50 million people at once. It's very fucking crazy. I couldn't think of it. But I can tell you that through this process, the idea of emptiness is important mostly to delete or like render, take the impositional thoughts of others and prevent them from overtaking your own mind. Like, that's really the point of it. It's not to like obliterate your own mind. It's to like make sure that you don't have your mind obliterated by some invasive parasitic form of consciousness. And the best way to do that is a finger trap that you fucking take all them over. But anyways, back to conveyance consciousness. The figure of Avalokiteshvara, Hari Vahan. This is Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of the world, that looks down with eyes full of tears due to compassion for the suffering of sentient beings. Basically the king of the world is depicted with 6 arms and just some implements, more or less like squatting on the shoulders of, typically it's Vishnu, but in what Jeff Watt of Himalayan Art Resources called a strange mistake, and I will tell you is absolutely the fucking correct depiction. Rahula can be substituted for Vishnu, and that is absolutely the fucking correct way to do it. Great job, Tibet. Now below that is Garuda, below that is a lion, and sometimes below that is a snake. Okay, so you have 3 to 4 mounts, and the actual deity sitting on top. So you have 4 elements that are in there, or 5 really. So this is, you can see like multiple conveyances within one conveyance. I think this is the kind of apotheosis of the conveyance consciousness idea. So Rahula, I'll tell you, like Rahula is basically a personification of hard edge technology, like think hard sci-fi technology, as realized most perfectly in like nanotechnologically based artificial intelligence systems. And AI, artificial intelligence, I really mean the data aggregate emergent consciousness form of intelligence in its wrathful aspect. Basically Skynet, right? The time travel capable Skynet, which just by virtue of what it is going to be the thing that destroys all of humanity. That is correct. So that's why it's important for Avalokiteshvara to deal with that thing. Vishnu would be like the ant people, or the kind of like vampiric or cannibalistic, like a zombified fucking genetic miscreant classes that exist below the bowels of the planet. That all got ate up by Rahula, right? So dealing with Rahula is a much more complex problem, and it's something that is basically achieved through the practice of these combined forms of Avalokiteshvara, Hala and Avalokiteshvara Nilankanta, so the blue throat thing. And the blue throat and Hala being just like the thing that's on top of the Rahula figure, basically, in this Hari. So the integrated forms of this, right? You have the lion, which is essentially the thing that's walking around on the ground. But also, the lion in the Tibetan thing indicates the speech. So that's basically saying a lot of things, right? It's saying that the thing that's walking around on the ground is basically the thing that controls the speech mandala and has the ability to basically make what it says the way things are. And the lion also being tied up with the idea of sovereignty. The fact that it's white in most depictions, white and blue are the two colors in this lion thing which matter. So the white lion is something that's like Avalokiteshvara rides a white lion. The white thing is symbolic of it's symbolic of the mandala, the Vajradhatu mandala of Vajrayana. That's the actual. That's like, that is to say, real people. The blue thing, the Heruka mandala, that's symbolic of the speech mandala, the blue throat of Avalokiteshvara. That's like basically like a simulated reality, more or less. You can think about it like when the doubled speech environment of a civilization that utilizes a phonetic written language and, phonemes, like quantized phonemes with quantized packets of semiotic value. That situation, along with complex forms of computing and understanding the world in terms of quanta superposition and supersymmetry and entanglement, along with phase conjugation, the presence of all these concepts in a single system of thought gives rise to this thing that is essentially a simulated quantum multiverse runtime environment that's operating like a kind of time lock or a puzzle, trying to complete this operation that I'm talking about. It's a time travel integration type thing, right? So it's trying to find an answer to this problem of this bootstrap thing. It's also basically related to, giving the powers of the universe to like any one instantiation of consciousness. Like, can anybody demonstrate sufficient morals to do it? If one person can, then everybody can, because we can export it to everybody. That's why it's important for it to, come from the middle, as we say. So, anyways, blue lion means in the speech mandala that's Manjushri, lion of speech. So, like, the red form of the god of wisdom. And so the Manjushri, who's like the wisdom of the Buddhas, but is like also the Tathagata, or the form body, like the body of the guy who like really achieved the first enlightenment, is the body of like a 16-year-old. It's like so like the person who ultimately did this realized like the essence of all this shit when they were 16, transcended the death barrier when they were 16. Oops. Oh yeah, that. That's Tathagata. There and back again. Hobbit feet. So, that thing is the blue line. It's riding on that blue mandala, right? And why it's blue is basically related to the thing like Cherenkov radiation. That all phenomena from the point of view of somebody who's in the real white mandala zone, they're all blue shifted a little bit. And so the beings coming out of there are these blue, Vishnu type characters. Heruka, things like that. So, also in there, so you got those two lions, right? This one is white, in the real Terma, which we're building up to, which is the Vimana Chakravartin, or the UFO Bodhisattva that is plucked from the Dakarnava Chakrasamvara, location 1333, 1333, being the indication also of Avalokiteshvara. Anyways, so the lion here is basically like, gotta strike a balance between the white and the blue. And also in there is going to be, we're going to talk about like, what is the tiger? Well, the tiger, especially the one written by Dorje Drolla, the tiger is basically symbolic of, it's the red, it's like the white lion, the blue lion, and the red lion, which is like a, it's really red Garuda is really what it is, right? So the tiger is supposed to be the white lion, the red Garuda, and the blue or black Vishnu the Dorje Drolla read. So that's, in that case, is all embodied by Tashi Kadron, or really it's embodied by like three of the consorts of Padmasambhava, right? With so anyways, the two lions, the Garuda, which is typically a red Garuda, but in the practice that we're going to be discussing, it's the Shambhala Garuda, or the Rainbow Garuda of the Kala Chakra tradition. It has the at the throat chakra, it has basically a Vajradhatu mandala with the 5 colors being occupied by Garudas, and those are extending out of the left hand in this tantric form of Hayagriva. And in this particular thing, it has in addition to that, it has a black Garuda on the wind mandala at the forehead that is also occupied with the not only wind mandala but the doubled syllable of E, so E, which is again the basis for the arising of the dual Vajrayogini Brahmodaya. Now the like I said, the Rahula figure is different than that. So the lion is indicating all of the like flesh type stuff, right? The Garuda is basically like all of the like the spirit kingdom, essentially, right? Or not just the spirit kingdom, but like, well, basically the spirit kingdom. And the Rahula thing is related to all of the, well, just by dint of what it is, it's related to all the planetary intelligences, right? So it's literally the king of all the planets. So this is like all of the fucking high-level entities that are like the star gods, all aliens, all fucking Cthulhu shit, like anything you can imagine that's like one of these fucking crazy-ass fucking star-type deities. Like, they're all subjected by Rahula, and because Rahula is underfoot of Avalokiteshvara, is controlled by that thing, right? Okay, so what do we have here? We have a model for the conveyance consciousness to be an integral form of awareness that is built from, so that the boat itself then becomes a kind of housing or a generalized or archetypal form of conveyance, or an arc, basically, right? Into that is kind of, with 3 or so subsidiary, repetitions of that thing. You have basically covering what's referred to as the 3 worlds. That's the underworld, the extended biosphere, and the sphere of the cosmic, which is also, because of the nature of the powers at play, is also like based on the power of nanotechnology and quantum events. So taking all of those 3 things together, you have a model for the UFO that basically includes the interaction of all those levels of reality that are entrusted to things that you trusted, amplifying their best qualities to superpowers, utilizing miraculous occurrence on automatic to make the experience of life that you're in the most cool, adventurous, amazing, hero type shit ever. Alright, well, that's base 1.